Today, we are ranking every major tank gun of World War II. From the guns that failed the men who carried them into battle, to the one that redefined what a tank could actually kill. We are judging every one of these on the same three things: how much armor the shell actually punched through, how fast it was moving when it got there, and what it was like to load and fire it while someone was shooting back. A couple of these guns never even got a working high-explosive shell, and that cost real crews their lives. And when we get to the last two guns, we are talking about the 88 and the 17-pounder, built for the exact same job, and they did not agree on how to do that job. Number 7. Cannone WW2, Italy. Italian crews had a nickname for this gun. They called it Elefantino, Little Elephant, and the name stuck because it fit. The Cannone WW2 was a 47mm gun, designed by the Austrian firm Böhler and licensed built in Italy by the thousands, more than 3,000 of them in total, and it armed Italy's M1340 and M1441 medium tanks through most of the early desert campaigns. Here's the part that surprises people who assume every low-ranked gun was broken from day one. In 1940, this gun was genuinely fine. Its armor-piercing round left the barrel at 630 meters per second, punching through 58 millimeters of armor at 100 meters and 43 millimeters at 500 meters. Numbers that matched Britain's own anti-tank gun of the same period. The Italian gun even had something the British one lacked entirely: a working, high-explosive shell. Even a weak one, moving at just 250 meters per second. The real problem was time, not engineering. Enemy tanks kept getting thicker armor, year after year, and Italy kept sending this same gun into the same fights in 1942 without a real answer to that upgrade. A longer-barreled version did eventually arrive for the M1542 tank, pushing penetration up to 70 millimeters at 100 meters and 50 millimeters at 500 meters. But it came in small numbers and years too late to matter. One more detail says everything about how this gun actually performed in the field. It kept breaking the axles of its own tow tractors. A gun that can't reliably reach the battlefield is already losing before it fires a single round. That's rank 7. Number 6. Type 97 57mm tank gun, Japan. If the Italian gun aged badly, the Japanese Type 97 was built badly for the fight it eventually faced. This 57mm gun armed the Type 97 Chiha medium tank, and its whole design pointed at supporting infantry, not killing other tanks. The barrel measured just 1.057 meters, only about 18.5 calibers long, and the shell left the muzzle at only 355 meters per second, weak enough that it managed barely 20 millimeters of penetration at 500 meters. Japan learned exactly how much that mattered in 1939, during the battles of Khalkhin Gol, fought against the Soviet Union along the Mongolian border. Soviet BT tanks rolled into that fight in real numbers, and the Type 97's gun simply could not answer them. Japanese tank losses piled up fast enough that engineers went back to the drawing board almost immediately. The fix that arrived from 1942 onward went smaller, not bigger, and that is the twist worth remembering here. A new 47mm gun, shorter caliber but much higher velocity, replaced the 57mm entirely and actually penetrated more armor doing it. Tanks carrying the new gun even earned their own nickname, Shinhoto Chiha, New Turret Chiha, to separate them from the older, weaker versions still in the field. A bigger shell moving slowly loses to a smaller shell moving fast, and Japan paid for that lesson in blood at Khalkhin Gol before it ever reached a design office. Number 5. Ordnance. QF 2-pounder, Britain. Rank 5 never lost a fight because of bad aim. It lost fights because British doctrine sent it out only half equipped. The Ordnance Q F2 pounder was a 40mm gun, the main armament of Britain's early cruiser tanks, and the Matilda II. And its armor-piercing shot moved at a genuinely competitive 800 meters per second. Here's the flaw that actually cost lives, and it has nothing to do with the barrel. There was no high-explosive shell for the 2-pounder until late 1942, because British planners had decided anti-tank guns simply didn't need to fight infantry or gun positions. Crews rolled into the North African desert with nothing but armor-piercing shot in their racks. And when German infantry or anti-tank guns showed up instead of enemy tanks, they had almost no answer. The towed version also sat high off the ground, hard to hide in open desert, so crews started bolting it straight onto the back of trucks instead, a stopgap they called en portee, just to keep the gun mobile and alive. A later fix, called the Little John adapter, squeezed the shot down as it left the barrel and pushed penetration from 52mm up to 88. But the squeezed ammunition couldn't carry an explosive filler either. So the gun traded one gap for the exact same gap all over again. One battle makes that failure real in a way no spec sheet ever could. At Sidi Rizeg on the 21st of November, 1941, 2nd Lieutenant George Ward Gunn found himself alone on a 2-pounder after the rest of his crew had already been killed. A German counterattack of roughly 60 tanks was rolling straight at his position. He kept firing anyway, destroyed 2 of them, and died doing it. Britain gave him its highest award afterward, and that medal explains this gun's real failures better than any penetration table. Britain would eventually fix this exact mistake, and fix it so completely that it reshapes this entire ranking. That fix is still 4 ranks away. Number 4. 76mm tank gun, M1940. 34, Soviet Union. Rank 4 is where this list stops being about bad guns and starts being about good guns that almost never reach the front. The F-34 became the T-34's main gun, a 76mm design out of Vasily Graben's bureau at factory number 92 in Gorky, engineered by P. Muraviev, and it was simply better than the gun the Red Army had already approved for service. That almost didn't matter at all. Marshal Grigory Kulik's political interference held up the F-34's approval even after it proved superior to the already approved L-11 gun sitting in Soviet tanks. Graben and the director of the Kharkov locomotive factory stopped waiting for permission. They quietly installed the F-34 on new T-34s without any official sign-off, and crews loved the upgraded tanks immediately. Word of that reached Stalin's own State Defense Committee, which finally forced through the approval that should have come months earlier. Once it reached the field, the gun earned every bit of that reputation. Muzzle velocity ran between roughly 612 and 680 meters per second, depending on the round, punching through 50 to 60 millimeters of armor at 500 to 1,000 meters. And a specialized round pushed that closer to 92 millimeters at 500 meters. That was more than enough to handle German armor through most of 1941 and 1942. Then Germany fielded the Tiger and the Panther, and the F-34's edge vanished almost overnight. The Red Army tried a stopgap first, a higher velocity 57mm gun called the ZIS-2, but it couldn't carry a proper high explosive round for everyday fighting, so that fix never spread past a handful of tanks. The real answer came in 1944, when the T-34 moved to an 85mm gun instead, retiring a weapon that had done its job exactly right, until the enemy simply built something it could no longer beat. Number 3. 75mm Gun M3, United States. Rank 3 is the most famous gun on this whole list, mostly because it rode inside the most famous tank of the war. The 75mm Gun M3 armed the M4 Sherman, its barrel stretching 40 calibers, about 3 meters end to end, and an earlier sibling of it, the M2, had already armed the M3 Lee and Grant before it. This gun was never built to hit the hardest. It was built to do everything reasonably well. That balance shows up clearly once you look at the numbers together. Its armor-piercing shot left the barrel at 619 meters per second, and the improved M61 round punched through 81 millimeters of armor at 500 yards, enough to deal with the early Panzer III and the first Panzer IVs well past 1,000 meters. Just as important, its high-explosive round carried a full 1.5 pounds of TNT, making it genuinely useful against infantry, gun positions, and buildings, not only against other tanks. Then March of 1942 changed the math completely. Germany introduced the Panzer IV Ausf G, wrapped in 80 millimeters of frontal armor and carrying the far stronger KWK-40 gun, and the 75 millimeters advantage mostly disappeared overnight. There is an honest wrinkle worth adding to that story, though. German wartime testing actually found that the Sherman's sloped 56-degree glacis could resist the KWK-40 at close range from an angle, while the 75mm could still punch through the Ausf-G's own hull in that same fight. Paper numbers alone do not always decide who wins. This gun did its job extremely well for exactly as long as the job stayed the same. When the job changed, the gun did not get worse. The war simply moved past it. Number 2, 8.8 centimeter KWK, 36, Germany. Rank 2 is the gun this entire ranking has been building toward, and it earns every ounce of its reputation before we take it down a peg. The 8.8 centimeter KWK, 36 armed the Tiger once, and Krupp built it by taking an existing weapon and giving it an entirely new job. That weapon was the 8.8 centimeter Flak 36, an anti-aircraft gun designed to hit planes, not tanks. And Germany decided a cannon built for the sky belonged in a turret too. The tank version kept a long 56 caliber barrel, close to 5 meters of steel, because that same length was exactly what had made the anti-aircraft gun so effective in the first place. The numbers back up every part of that reputation. Its standard armor-piercing round moved at 773 meters per second, and a specialized high-velocity round pushed that to 930 meters per second, punching through 171 millimeters of armor at 100 meters, its single best figure of the entire war. At 100 meters with the standard round, it still punched through 132 millimeters, holding onto 99 millimeters at a full 1,000 meters. Accuracy mattered here just as much as raw power. In British wartime firing trials, a gunner using this exact weapon scored 5 straight hits at 1,200 yards on a target smaller than a car door, then hit a moving target 3 more times. That's a genuinely precise weapon with a flat, forgiving trajectory, and it cost Germany 18,000 Reichsmarks per gun to build. Germany respected this gun enough to keep stretching the same idea. The later Tiger II carried an even longer 88mm gun, the KWK-43, built on the same anti-aircraft logic, but pushed even further, proof that Germany never stopped trying to out-engineer its own best weapon. This is why it doesn't sit at number 1. For everything the 88 does well, there's a British gun built for that exact same job that beats it on the numbers that matter most. And Britain designed it specifically so the 2-pounder's failure, back at rank 5, could never happen twice. Number 1. Ordnance, QF 17-pounder Britain. This is the gun the entire video has been pointing toward, and the numbers settle the argument better than any reputation could. The Ordnance QF 17-pounder was a 76.2mm gun, designed in 1941 and 1942, and rushed into British service by 1943, and its 55 caliber barrel ran just over 4 meters, close enough to the 88's own barrel length that the comparison was never really about size at all. Getting it into a tank at all took a fight of its own, separate from the fight against Germany. 2 British officers, Major George Bridie and Lieutenant Colonel George Withridge pushed the idea past a skeptical Ministry of Supply that did not want to spend the effort on it. Withridge had lived through the one-sided tank battles of North Africa, armed with nothing but the 2-pounder, and he was not willing to let that happen again. Their answer was blunt. Take the standard Sherman hull everyone already knew how to build, and shoehorn Britain's best gun straight into its turret. That gun became the Sherman Firefly, and roughly 2,100 of them reached the field. Line the ballistics up side by side, and the picture gets clear fast. The 17-pounder's standard APCBC round moved at 930 meters per second, punching through 174 millimeters of armor at 100 meters and still holding 150 millimeters at 1,000 meters. Its APDS round, a lighter penetrator riding inside a discarding outer shell, reached 1,200 meters per second and punched through 275 millimeters at 100 meters, dropping to 233 millimeters at 1,000 meters. Measured on the same testing standard, at matching ranges, that beats every figure the KWK-36 produced, including the German gun's own specialized high-velocity round. The battlefield backed those numbers up completely. At Neuilly-en-Bessin, on the 9th of June, 1944, a single Firefly gunner destroyed 5 Panther tanks, using just 6 rounds during a German counterattack. 2 months later, at Saint-Aignan-de-Cromesnil, during Operation Totalize, Fireflies destroyed 5 Tiger tanks from an elite SS heavy tank battalion in a 12-minute engagement, the same fight that killed the German tank ace Michael Wittmann, though historians still debate exactly which shot from which tank actually did it. The Firefly's long barrel made it easy to spot at a glance, so German crews were reportedly told to shoot it first whenever one showed up in a column, and British crews started painting the front half of that barrel to make it look shorter and less worth the first shot. None of that makes the 17-pounder flawless. It had no decent high-explosive shell until late 1944, and wartime production of its best APDS ammunition was inconsistent enough that crews could not always trust it fully. Here is the verdict this whole video comes down to. The best tank gun of the war was not the one with the scariest reputation. It was the one built on purpose to answer that reputation with better numbers. And it actually did. That's the real through line running under this whole list. The lowest ranked guns here weren't always badly built, and the gun sitting at number 1 didn't win by being the most feared. It won by being built deliberately to beat the gun everyone else was afraid of. If you want to see whether the armor those shells were hitting held up any better, that's the next ranking worth watching.